Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I'm Amber Churchwell.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome back to the Watchers in the Basement, or welcome if you are new. Consider subscribing to our YouTube channel by clicking the button down below and also hitting the like button if you've enjoyed watching The Handmaid's Tale overall. Amber and I have some thoughts, of course, about the penultimate and the finale on what is the series finale of The Handmaid's Tale. And we are here today to bring you our thoughts and to hopefully hear yours live. If you are watching the replay, leave your comments in the comment section down below and let us know what you think about the penultimate and the series finale of The Handmaid's Tale. Amber, thank you so much for being here. As always, praise be.
May the Lord open.
Oh no, let's not go that route. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that was intense. That's true. That's true. Shout out to King B Johnson for joining us in today's pod. Hopefully, he says the Watchers in the Basement have handmaid's tales of their own to tell one day. I'm a little confused by this. Please clarify. Hashtag Amber's Marvels. Hashtag execute. Yeah, interesting. I need clarification. Amber, thoughts on what was just shared?
What does that mean?
Yeah. Shout out to M Moves, who also says, "Good evening, y'all. About to work a few flights, but I'll catch the play or the replay." Appreciate you being here, M, as always. Thank you so much for your continuous support. So yeah, Amber, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about episodes 9 and 10 of season 6 of The Handmaid's Tales. What was your overall thoughts on episode 9 entitled Execution? And I think Amber may be frozen.
Sorry, I'm having
not
a little
sure.
bit of lag here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we're just going to roll with it. It appears that Gilead is trying to tamper with this pod. So yeah, screw them, people. But yes, we're going to go ahead and talk about episode 9 of The Handmaid's Tale, which in my personal opinion was the best episode of the whole season. And there was so much that was happening, so much going on. I just could not believe what we got from this episode. I'm also going to quickly see about letting Amber come back into the studio. Amber, are you there? Can you hear me? Are you with us? Yes.
Excellent, because you were lagging really badly. So I couldn't hear you for a minute, and I guess I was frozen. But anyway, my thoughts, the last thing I heard was you asking me about my thoughts on episodes 9 and 10.
Yes, and it seems like we're still experiencing some lagging from your side, unfortunately. Yeah. I blame Gilead. Okay, I blame Gilead.
I'm sorry. I'm as close to my router as physically possible. As we should.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and keep my responses short then. I thought that I personally liked episode 9 better than episode 10. I just felt like the pacing and the overall storyline executed better than episode 10. I feel like 10 was a little bit haphazard, all over the I preferred episode 9, but I thought it was a good finale, especially it's a good finale for a show, especially for something that is going to be having a sequel series later on. Like, I feel like if this was the absolute end without the approval of the second series, then I might have some problems with it.
Yeah, no, I can totally see where you're coming from with that. Given that I at least have read The Testaments, which is the sequel book to The Handmaid's Tale, it's setting it up well for the sequel series, but at the same time, I've heard that a lot of Handmaid's Tales fans are kind of falling off. They're not going to be watching the sequel series, The Testaments, which I thought was really rather interesting. And it probably has a lot to do with how the final episode, you know, ended, right? And I I have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts about the final episode, but at least we are going to discuss the first of the two episodes, the penultimate, the episode entitled Execution. Sorry, we're dealing with some technical difficulties, y'all. Please excuse us as we're trying to sort this out. Y'all are the real MVPs for hanging in there with us. But to begin with Execution, which is the title, as I mentioned, the key points in all of this is that June, Moira, and Janine and the handmaids are captured before they can cross the Canadian border. The prisoners, including Aunt Lydia, are nearly executed before the rest of Gilead, this public platform, right? And they eventually are rescued by Mayday, which surprisingly to me was led by Luke. And I got thoughts on that too. And then Lawrence, sweet, sweet Joseph Lawrence, the father of Gilead, if you will, sacrifices himself, as well as Nick and Commander Wharton, whom, again, have thoughts and feelings. He sneaks a bomb onto their DC bound plane and therefore ends everyone on that plane. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I thought the storytelling was beautiful. It was incredible. I could not believe what I was seeing, let alone hearing. And if y'all are joining in for the very first time, I will be joined hopefully by Amber very shortly. We're experiencing some technical difficulties, but for now, I'm going to be a talking head, and hopefully you all will share your thoughts in the chat as well as in the comments later on for the replay. We do respond to our comments and react. So for the season, almost the season finale of the Handmaid's Tales, we get to see what's happening to some of these characters, mainly with Mayday striking back against Gilead. And we left off with the handmaids basically going to take out their commanders who had been drugged by some sort of sedative in the wedding cake from Serena and Gabriel Wharton's wedding. And it was really nice to see, of course, June kill one of the commanders. Before I get too far deep into it, let's see if I can welcome Amber back into the studio. Amber, are we good?
I don't know. Can you hear me? I hear you much better.
Yes, and we have no lagging. Oh my God, this is gonna happen.
Finally.
Praise be.
Excellent. So I'm going to be on my phone though, guys. So camera quality is going to be a little bit weird, but I'll
It's all
try and
good.
find better lighting.
It is all good. I'm just glad that I'm not going to be a talking head anymore. You're here to bounce ideas and topics off along with. So yeah, just talking about how we left off with the previous episode where all these handmaids are like taking out these commanders who had been drugged, and obviously we got to see June take out the one commander that was abusing Janine, and we're picking up from where that left off, where we have Janine, June, Moira. They're with quote unquote Aunt Phoebe, right? Who actually her name is Ava. They're trying to make it their way to the Canadian border, but they have to like pick up other handmaids along the way, what have you. And they're soon met by Mayday trucks that are also being pursued by Guardian vehicles. So tell us what happened in that moment, because it kind of just happened really fast and really quick how they were captured.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked because it seemed really like they had everything according to plan. And then out of nowhere, when where they're actually supposed to meet the posted handmaids,
Because remember, from the last episode, June was with the posted handmaids leaving the wedding, but she rejoined the non-posted handmaids at the Red Center. So this is them all meeting up before getting out of Gilead. And she even says they have that conversation that she's going to stay behind. And I think Phoebe slash Ava said she was going to stay behind as well. But anyway, when instead of seeing the car, that or however the other handmaids, I don't know if they were going by car or if they were just walking, but I don't think they specified.
Mhm.
Either way, we see them bombarded by Gilead soldiers. Like the doors are open suddenly, and Gilead comes and takes them away and has all of them at gunpoint and was just demanding for June Osborne. It was like, and when none of them were standing up and saying who was who, uh, he pulls one of them out. I don't think we've seen that handmaid other than background
Right.
or before, but they pull her in and he has a gun to her head and he's like, I need Juno Osborne now. And she does come out to save that handmaid's life. She comes out and identifies herself and even has her tag to prove it. And yeah, I didn't really expect that. I thought they were really going to get away with it this time. But I mean, as always, until the very, very end, Gilead just keeps coming back like a freaking cockroach.
Well, what's funny to me throughout this whole season is that it's been so easy to get in and out of Gilead borders, right? Like they basically were kind of coming in, walking in whenever, and Lawrence was also doing the same, going to Canada or no man's land to chat with Mayday and things like that. It's just like now everything's just so easy to get in and out of Gilead, whereas in the 5 previous seasons it was impossible. It was so impossible to get in and out of Gilead. But here we are. Yeah. So, with that being said, we are, uh, all of them have been captured, if you will, and June obviously is the one that needed to be identified. And Serena is also on the run. Let's not forget about Serena. She took off in the middle of the
Oh yeah.
night after her wedding with her child to escape Gabriel Wharton and his new handmaid, right? Because he did a bait and switch, and she's been running. She is starting to hear things going on in the environment, and then she comes across a handmaid who is savagely stabbing a wife in the front lawn.
Good for
And
her.
Serena's yes, okay, more power to her. Like let's be real, okay, more power to her. And so eventually Serena does make her way to Lawrence's home, right? And somehow Naomi was able to, be awake from her 3 cake slice eating coma, if you will. She said she slept like the dead, or felt like she just slept a really long time, right? There was a sedative. And there are bombs going off and what have you. But Naomi was shocked that Serena has left her husband on their wedding night. And Serena's like, what's going on? And Lawrence just simply says, rebellion. I'm like, and you're a part of it.
Yep, yep, yep. He knew. He was aware.
He was
Uh,
aware.
maybe Naomi has a really fast metabolism.
I don't know. I mean, she itty bitty little thing, so maybe so, maybe so. But Amber, there's also some concern at the Blaines, right? Nick is dead asleep on his desk, and then Rose comes to chat with him.
Yeah, she comes in and she is clutching her belly, her very, very pregnant belly.
Hmm.
And she starts off, she wakes him up. It takes a couple of tries, but she does wake him up because, again, he did have the cake with the sedative in it. And she did as well. So we believe, or we're led to believe that, because she said that there's a problem with the baby. There's a problem.
Hmm.
And we kind of flash to them being at the hospital. Later on throughout this episode, we see them at the hospital. So we're kind of led to believe that the sedative had a negative effect on her and the baby.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for sure. So that's kind of where we leave it for the moment, but let's go back to the Lawrence's home where they learned that 37 commanders had been killed by their handmaids. And Serena begins to
Praise be.
surprisingly. I thought you were trying to say praise be on what Serena was about to say next, which was she surprisingly was defending the women's actions. And Naomi, and Serena's talking to Naomi. Naomi just basically dismisses Serena and says, listen, your liberal nonsense needs to stop. Okay. This is also echoing what Gabriel had said the night before about how he entertained her liberal notions and reform and all this bullshit. Come to find out that Gabriel is actually there in the Lawrence home. He's meeting with Lawrence about what to do, what the next steps need to be to kind of regain control of Boston, the situation at hand, and awkward moment between the newlyweds, right, Amber?
A little bit. And I kind of was more worried that for a minute she was gonna fall back into it, but they have that whole discussion. Like he's just like he tries to apologize, but in that way where he never really says, I'm sorry, or takes really accountability for it. Kind of just this is excuses for how this is gonna be, is
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I interpreted every single word that came out of
Oh,
his
yeah.
mouth.
Yeah.
It was not genuine. He just wanted to reel her back in. And I'm pretty proud of her for not falling for it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it is kind of like at this point, it's like, Serena, I mean, like, finally, but like, come on, lady, we had to like basically hold you at literal gunpoint to get you to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And either way, I thought it was interesting and really surprised that he didn't push it more, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Like I thought he was gonna go harder into it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I seem to have lost my notes here real quick. Let's see if I can get it back. But with that being said, Gabriel tries to tell Serena, like, hey, you're going off somewhere to a safer area. You're not going to stay here. And she's refusing to leave. And he reveals to her that he instead is actually going to go to DC to meet with the other high commanders to, figure out what is the next steps. But first he needs to deal with the ungodly women here, led by the heretic, June Osborne. And Serena's shocked that her friend in her mind, right, is for one not only back in Gilead because she believes she was in Alaska. She kind of orchestrated this rebellion attack on their wedding day. I think we might have lost Amber again. She seems to have frozen. Damn you, Gilead. Damn you, Gilead. I swear. Okay, here we go. Amber's back. Amber, I swear to God, Gilead is like trying to get us to not do this pod today. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I know it's being a struggle. They just don't want it to end,
They
I
don't.
guess.
They don't.
Um,
But
what's
what were
really funny though is on my you were the one lagging and frozen.
Oh goodness, that's crazy. Wow. What were your thoughts on Serena when she learned that June was behind the rebel attack? Even though she's like upset with Wharton, um, she tells him to unleash God's justice on June. What were your thoughts on that?
I think that came from a place of hurt. I think she had at this point because they we don't forget when June was at Serena's house, they had a conversation that needed to be happening for a while, where
Yeah.
she said like, "What can I possibly do to get wanted to?" Am I freezing again?
Yeah, you kind of are. It's fine. We're gonna keep
Better.
going. We're gonna keep going. We're
Okay.
gonna keep going.
She just like they had that conversation, and June says, "I can't forgive you. I want to, but I can't."
Mhm.
And I think that was kind of what she needed to hear. That like Serena was like at that point, she has done everything she can to atone, and June sees that, but she just can't get over the trauma that she went through, which is understandable. And I
Sure.
think that's finally was building the blocks for Serena to finally get there. So to find out that she was at her wedding and and I guess quote unquote ruined it by doing this plan and this massacre, I I think she was just shocked and flabbergasted that June is still pursuing the agenda against her.
Mhm.
And so I think this actually is what lead like yeah, I think it came from her saying to execute God's justice. I think that was her being hurt, but
Mhm.
I do think she regrets that later on, obviously, when her and Lawrence are speaking. And by the end of it, I think she kind of realizes that like, yeah, I was hurt, but this is what was going to happen anyway. Like what what did I honestly expect from June?
Yeah. No, that's perfectly fair, and I couldn't have said better. But with Wharton now like on the warpath, right, to deal with June, he goes to the jail, which by the way, like was this cell like made specifically for June in mind with like this kind of you know what it gave me? It gave me Joe Goldberg vibes, okay? Just it wasn't a box. It was a circular cell, it's see-through, crazy, like absolutely crazy. But Wharton goes to talk to June face to face and in close proximity, right? He lets her out of the cell. They are kind of both just sparring with their words. Obviously, June responds very sarcastically, apologizing for ruining the wedding. Of course, he's not amused, which is actually pretty funny. And he starts getting pretty self-righteous about his purpose, God's plan, and Gilead's pious path. And she kind of calls him out. She's like, "How the hell would you know what God's plan is? How, what my God, Serena's God is a God of love, and I
Mhm.
think that's so good because people love to twist religion, whatever it may be, to fit their narrative, right? And they
Yeah,
pick and choose verses and they pick and choose the different values to move forward with. So June tells him the regime and its leaders are all about power. It's not about piety. And more importantly, it was never about children. Okay, right?
yeah.
It couldn't have been. It could not have been. But before he leaves, she pleads with him to be the man Serena believes he can be, which has
Yeah,
no
right.
effect on him whatsoever.
Yeah, because
Absolutely had
that
no.
guy does not genuinely care about Serena. Let's be
No,
honest. He
no.
he does not
Let's be real.
genuinely care about Serena.
No, not
It was
no
the
at
wrong
all.
play.
The wrong absolute play. Yes. Amber, I love this next moment with Commander Lawrence and Angela. I think it was one of the sweetest moments, especially knowing what happened at the end of this episode. And I do have to ask you first, I mean, so if you walk us through what happened, and then also, do you think Naomi had kind of like a redeeming arc at this point? Or do you think that came later in the final episode? Or if did she have a redeeming arc at all?
To answer the um I think she's on the beginning of an arc. And I think this was the first brick in that wall. I don't think it overall in the entire story she's had a great one, because we even seen in the past couple episodes she's still irksome. And I mean, especially in this actual episode, and that she was when Serena was saying about what happened with Morton, she was immediately like, okay, well, still go back to your husband. He's your husband. What are you talking about? So, like, she still has a lot of room to change, a lot further to go. But I do think that this was the beginning of that. And I, because obviously the women, the wives and the children are being sent because for the danger and stuff like that. They're being sent away, and that means Naomi and baby Angela, they're going, or Charlotte, whichever. And he is saying goodbye to them, but he's saying goodbye specifically like he's talking to Naomi, but every single thing that he says is about Angela. And I thought it was like very, very sweet. And I he reveals the book and the little princess, and he says that we've been reading this. She likes to hear this at night. And for one, that's giving her Naomi permission to read. And because they're not currently in New Bethlehem. They're in
Right.
Gilead proper. So he's giving her permission to read. And not just that, but read to their little girl. So I think it was kind of a stepping stone, like for her to realize, oh, things are definitely changing. And this high commander is giving me and my daughter a chance for change, I guess. That's how I
Yeah.
interpreted it. I definitely thought it was very sweet that he's obviously built this care and connection towards Angela. I thought it was
Mhm.
adorable. But overall, I thought it was very interesting, but I still think Naomi has a very long way to go.
Couldn't agree more. And it's kind of, I mean, Naomi obviously fell in line with the other wives about letting the men decide things and doing whatever they said. You know, the wives didn't want to have to think for themselves or have an opinion or want to have their voice be heard. And Serena's like, well, you know, why? Like you can live a different life in New Bethlehem, but it still has Gilead values. And Naomi just reinforced that whole thing where she was perfectly fine with how Gilead proper operated. But when Lawrence basically gave her a directive and said, hey, listen, this kid wants to learn. Like more than anything, she wants to learn. And he's telling her, do good by her and read this to her and help nurture that growth and that thirst for learning and what have you. And so for her to not question it and say, you know, but this is not how we do things here or what have you, for her to ask, what chapter are you on? It was almost as if like she just secretly has wanted all of this, but she, I guess in her mind, felt like she wasn't allowed to have those feelings or have those thoughts or anything of the kind, right? Because of the culture that they now live in. But I thought it was a really interesting like stepping stone for Naomi, just given all that her character has embarked on throughout this whole series, and it's specifically when it came down to Janine and Angela, which we're not done talking about yet, but we'll talk about that relationship in the final episode. Getting back to this episode, so there is also another moment between Lawrence and Serena in the household where Serena acknowledges that while her relationship with June has been complicated, she still is concerned about June's safety. And she at least does not want to see June executed. And it's Lawrence that asks her if we can pray for June. Lawrence, who has no religious bone in his body. He was just an economist who wanted his plan to save the country go into effect, but he had to appeal to, you know, really, I guess, right-winged evangelicals or whatever, whatever you call it. Like he had to appeal to them in order to get on board to get things moving. So I thought it was a really interesting scene shared between these two
Oh yeah.
characters to actually have a moment in sincerity and pray for June.
Mhm. I think it was him reaching out to bond over somebody they considered. I don't really know if friend is the right word, but I guess friend by no other word.
A frenemy?
I Frenemy, yeah, sure. Because I mean, he does still obviously have a lot of complicated feelings with June because of what happened with his wife. But
Yeah.
I think he knows that Serena feels very similarly about June as he does, and both of them don't want to see her die. So I think it was very interesting that he reached out in that way, a way that Serena would be open to, I guess. So it's kind
Mhm.
of a way to reach out for comfort and companionship in a way
Yeah.
that Serena can understand. And I think even if he doesn't understand it, I think he that's what his goal was with that. And I
Yeah.
thought it was very, very interesting. But I mean, I feel like at that point both of them were just like it was bound to happen eventually, which is sad. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great
Well,
scene.
it was a great scene that overlaps watching June be escorted to this like huge platform of gallows, right? And it's set up in the city, led by Commander Wharton, who I mean, who else would have done it at this point, right? You're hearing people in the crowds.
The
It's like
ghost of Fred Waterford.
the ghost of Fred Waterford. Oh man. But the callbacks in this scene in particular, this whole sequence in particular to that of Fred Waterford, I thought it was actually
Mhm.
very well done. So you have
Yeah.
the econ people of Gilead, right? They're like the lower class of society here in Gilead. They're present along with Wharton. June June is there, witnessing everything, and Wharton begins to talk about punishing the wicked, right? And then she's later surrounded by, or takes notice that Aunt Phoebe, who is obviously part of Mayday, right? It wasn't clear if she infiltrated or she is a former Gilead sympathizer who, turned. Wasn't clear at the point. But she's there. She has a noose around her neck, and the other captured handmaids, including Moira and Janine, are escorted from trucks there, and they're being readied for execution, which I thought in this scene was really, really critical for the econ people to understand that by supposed word of God, these handmaids are sacred, right? Their
Yeah.
purpose is sacred. They're vessels, they perform a service in God's name to bring forth children into the world. And you hear the murmurs among the econ people saying this isn't God, this isn't right. Uh,
Mhm.
they are who they are, and this, like, there's no way this can be true. But I think the most powerful moment was Aunt Lydia when she's being brought out.
Mhm.
She is being blamed by Wharton for turning the handmaids into murderers. He gives her a chance to atone for her sins. So she begins her prayer, right? She has, like, Lydia, I think we've all kind of struggled with her as a character because in many ways, like Serena, you want her to see the error of her ways through that of Janine, right? Janine has always been her quote special girl. And you see just how much she yearns to have Janine's forgiveness. This is like the equivalent of Serena and June and their struggles. But for Lydia to come out and begin a prayer to say, Lord, please bless and forgive these girls, for they have been prisoners of wicked and godless men. Holy shit, that was
Yes.
incredible.
I full on clapped. I was alone and I started clapping. I was just like, "Yes, Aunt Lydia, go off." I was
Yes,
like, "Good for
bitch, we are
her."
here.
Yeah, and
Yes.
also the delivery of the actress too, how she did it, I was like,
And Dodd.
"Ooh, it had a punch," and I thought it was great.
Oh,
I thought it was
phen
great.
phenomenal work by this woman. And she too is obviously going to be fitted with a noose, right? June is next, right? She's about to be readied for execution, but she does ask for the opportunity to speak, to atone for her sins, and not to drag this out, obviously, because this is actually an episode that Elizabeth Moss directed, and you can just tell when she directs episodes as opposed to any other person. There's like a very telling look and style. But she begins
You
her
mean this look?
prayer. Oh, Jesus. Yes, that's that look. Yes. If for those who may be just listening on our audio podcast, if you check out our video podcast here, you will see Amber's demonstration of the Elisabeth Moss style of directing. Shout out to Amber, you're the realist. But
I saw the
June,
opportunity and I took it.
listen, that was a great opportunity. That was wild. But June is saying her prayer and what have you, and then I do appreciate how she transforms from like this very sincere, like she's made her peace with what's about to happen, asking for forgiveness and things like that. And while she's doing this, you see Luke and Rita and other members of Mayday kind of making their way through the econ people to get to the gallows. And it's almost as if she was in a way kind of speaking to Luke, even though I don't think she was. But June will like dip her head and then she comes back up with like this rage look. And that's the transformation that I'm talking about that Elisabeth Moss does so well. And she basically tells the people to stand up and fight, that this is not right. None of this has ever been right. And she's getting, strung up even more. And before she goes up, she calls back to Fred Waterford. I can't say it in Latin, but she basically says, "Don't let the bastards grind you down." And I'm like, woo! What a moment.
I loved it. I kind of just wish her delivery was a little bit more like Lydia's.
Yes.
Only a little bit. Like, I feel like it was just more her just screaming. I feel like if
Yeah,
she had
it
just
was.
had genuinely like belted it, I
Mhm.
feel like that would be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Personally. But I'm
Yeah.
not the director. But either
She
way, I thought
was.
it was crazy. And
Yeah.
best thing that she possibly could have said while being strung up, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Yeah, take it away, Amber. Tell us
Yeah.
all else that occurred in that moment with Mayday
Well,
and everyone.
yeah. Throughout the entire her little speech, and they don't show it during Lydia's, but we can assume during Lydia's, Mayday has, or at least Luke and one of the people of Mayday, and the familiar faces of Mayday that we know, have been kind of weaving their way through the crowd, trying to get towards the front. And the moment that she gets pulled up, we get all hell breaks loose. There's gunshots. There's
Grenades.
grenades. There's bombs. There's full
Mhm.
on attack because Mayday has come, and a lot of the eco people are for it too because they're just exactly from what she had just said, because
Yep.
they saw handmaids come out and they're like, no, this is wrong. Those are sacred women, and that, like, this is
Mhm.
ungodly, this is, so they were already upset.
Mhm.
So seeing her being strung up after shouting all of that in her little speech, and then they see attacks happening, and so they're like, yeah, let's go. And oh my goodness. And mind you, June is still dangling up there, and
Yikes.
they once she gets, because Ava, Phoebe, I'm just gonna call her Ava. She gets freed from her noose, and she immediately starts getting the other girls taken care of. And once the girls are taken care of, she starts taking people down. But she
Dude,
is.
the twirl with the baton. Oh my
Oh,
god.
I
How
love
dramatic
her.
was that?
I want to be her when I grow up. Um, but
You wanna be an
then
aunt? What's wrong with you?
no,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
we find out she was not really an aunt.
I
But
know.
um, then we see and we see people, they're trying to get her down. They're trying to get her down because she's still hanging up there. So they're trying to
Mhm.
get her the machine, because it was her noose was
It was a
on, like,
crane.
was on a crane. So unlike the other ones who had the normal wooden gallows. So
Mhm.
they shoot out the person who's running the crane, and they have
Shout
to
out to
break.
Rita for that.
Yeah,
My
good for
goodness.
her. And she has to break the glass and get down in there to try and get June down. And, Luke is there
Mhm.
waiting for her when she drops, and he's instantly like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And yeah, she's obviously okay as she stares into the camera for the
She's
500th
the star
time.
of the show. She's not gonna die.
I know, but also, like, there's, like, literal war going on. We don't need to see you staring into the camera for another 10 minutes. But,
Exactly.
that's just me and my pet peeves, as you know.
Yep.
Um, so they it we don't really see in the kerfuffle where Wharton goes, but we know he escapes, but
He escapes. Lydia's taken away, as well as Janine. Those three
yes.
for sure were taken away by Gilead,
Mhm,
and uh, people are being killed. Econ people doing their thing. Handmaids doing their thing, and then the Americans. The Americans are doing their thing. There are 4 fighter jets firing missiles into Boston.
mhm.
So now, for me, sadly, I've never been to Boston. I hope to go to Boston one day, but I'm like, the history, the historical significance of Boston. Why? But
Well, also,
there
Gilead already destroyed a lot of that too.
that's true. That's also very true.
So,
But
a
yeah, there
lot of it's already taken down.
yeah. But there are explosions, they're rattling like homes, including Serena, who's still at the Lawrences. She's there with Noah. American soldiers bust up all in there and led by Tuello. Oh my god, I gotta say, that hero shot of him looks so good. I'm like, hello, how are you doing? Hi. Um,
We were always like that with Twello, though, I
I
mean.
know, he's adorable. I mean, if I were Serena, I would have hoped that it's like, "Oh my god, it's my knight in shining armor," except he's in camo, but it's fine. Um, but yeah, they barge through the door. He basically says he's looking for Lawrence. She doesn't know where he is. He takes her and the baby to somewhere safe. And following a series of like, just of what's occurring. We get a quick, scene with Nick and Rose, right? Amber, they're in the hospital, and we learn that the baby is going to
Yep.
be just fine. But Rose then tells Nick, "Hey, you got to do something."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says that you need to do something about June, like, she doesn't stop or whatever, and, like, you she basically forces him that he needs to make a decision, and he needs to choose whether it's going to be Gilead and thus her and their son,
Hmm.
or if it's going to be her and likely death, let's be honest. So, it was basically instead of she wasn't giving him the option, she was giving him a direction,
Hmm.
really, and I think, we all kind of felt what was gonna happen. We kinda felt it because 'cause it's been leading up to it, and
Yeah.
as much as a lot of people really, really like Nick, I like Nick, but
Love
I
Nick.
also know, yeah, I know that he is
He
not
has a
making the greatest
complicated.
decisions.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
fair.
I know he's not making it that he's yeah, like, I knew this. We all knew this, but now he has to, like, actually make a decision, and he already betrayed June. And she already basically for sure ended things, like, she said, "Hey, this is never happening again." So
Hmm.
she broke up with him, and I don't think he sees that as an avenue or a path that he wants to fight for anymore,
Yeah,
because he doesn't even wanna fight, he just wants to have it easy.
just like every
And
other man in this world. My goodness.
yeah, pathetic.
Yes, I said
So
it.
you're not wrong,
I'm
but
not.
yeah, it also, like, lady, I don't know,
Yeah.
I have problems with it, but he has
Yeah.
the choice to make or whatever, and that's kinda where we leave it for them for a while until the very end of the episode.
Yeah. because he doesn't really like respond. He just kind of nods, and that's where we leave it. So
Yeah.
being rescued from the gallows, June is like, I mean, I think she's probably just running on adrenaline at this point. She's like moving through whatever little office space that the Americans and other refugees of Gilead have now taken over. We learn that Phoebe/Ava is actually a former CIA agent, top of her class
Top
at
of her
that.
class.
Yeah, that's kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie.
Telling you,
But
I want
they
to be her when I grow up.
she says that they've gained a small foothold in the war against Gilead, but they really do need to get to the extreme commanders to deal with them, and then for I guess more efforts in taking back the United States from Gilead can go into motion. But it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. They agree that the evildoers, if you will, they're gonna be out of food. Or they're gonna be out for blood. Sorry, I don't know why I said food. They're gonna be out for blood, but they still are missing Lawrence, who is kind of like their best chance at finding out the plans and getting to them, and then just therefore ending it, right? But they have to go with Plan B, and Plan B is Serena, who has taken refuge across the street in a church. She's in protective custody, and it's June that's going to have to deal with her. And kind of to my surprise, in a way, Serena was relieved to see June is still alive, despite everything that has led up to that moment. Tell us what happened in this scene, Amber, with Serena and June.
Well, first and foremost, I wasn't surprised with her being relieved because I don't think she
Hmm.
ever actually wanted her dead. I
Okay,
think, yeah, she was
fair enough.
hurt. I think she
Yeah.
was hurt by somebody that she thought was finally like they were finally on a path towards forgiveness, even though she felt like she would never get full forgiveness. They were on an amicable path where she did consider her a friend. She said so at the wedding. So I think, again, her saying to Warden about executing the justice was just her being hurt. I think she is genuinely does care for June. So I'm not surprised that she was relieved. But she does say, I can't. They have the, because June says, like, we need to kill them. Like, this needs to happen. And at first, Serena's all disappointing everybody by being like, well, you're asking me to kill my husband. And it's like, yeah, like we killed your other one. Let's go. Like, I,
You are not destined to be married, woman. You are not.
no. It's just like, honestly, if you wanted a husband to be alive, pick a better man. Just pick a better man.
Or, don't.
Yeah. But gosh, so eventually, they do have this very and they do continue having good conversations about like what's morally right, and and June says like you have this final chance. This is our last chance. We have to have this done. And
Mhm.
as she's trying to leave, she very clearly shows that she's disappointed in Serena. And
Yeah.
I think Serena just wants June's approval so badly that that's why she eventually told her. She's like, they're flying out at this time, and from this airport, that's where they're gonna be.
Well, and I think the turning point too was June putting it into perspective that Gabriel is going to raise Noah, and he's going to
Yeah,
raise him in his image, basically. And he's a tyrant.
yeah.
Is that what you want for your son, Serena? And
Mhm.
that was like, oh my God, like the rose colored glasses just actually fell off and shattered. And it was like, woman, Jesus.
And,
I
like, honestly, I was just, "How long is this going to take?" I don't get it.
know. Oh
But
my God. Yeah,
she did give her the info, so we gotta
she
give her
did.
that.
She did. And June will return to Twello with that information. And we will see Lawrence escorted by soldiers into the room. And basically the plan is that this altitude sensitive bomb is going to be planted on the plane that's going to leave Boston to go to DC with all these commanders, these extremist commanders. And it's basically Lawrence's duty to make sure that that suitcase with the bomb gets on that plane, and he needs to get himself off of it before, before things go sideways, right? And Lawrence, who really never gets his hands dirty in that respect, is a little reluctant, but he eventually agrees. And it's, for me, I started getting a little anxious. I was like, oh God, this is no, this can't be it. Like, no, not for him. No, not my Lawrence, right? Because I love his character. He's great. It's tough. It's tough because June and Lawrence drive to the I can't even think what it's called, but where, to meet the plane. And Lawrence is there's too much talky between the two of them. And I'm like, get on the damn plane and get off the damn plane and get away. Sorry. And because of this,
you guys could have this conversation on the drive back.
Thank you.
Like,
or while you're on the way to the damn airport. Like, come on. Sorry, I'm dying over here.
Yeah.
Poor choice of words on my end. But Lawrence, he starts walking towards the plane. He's met up by the other commanders who are like, oh, you're here. Why are you here? And they're poking fun at him. And Wharton's all like, hey, we need a united front to DC. Thank you for being here. Let's go. And Lauren has to like pause because now he's understanding the gravity of the situation. He is not going to be able to make an excuse to get off the plane and leave something behind, right? And so it's like he realizes that he's about to seal his fate by going into that plane and not coming back off. And June is just watching from the car, like horrified. And when he pauses at the top of the stairs, he looks over at June, puts his hand over his heart, and that is the last time that June will see Commander Joseph Lawrence ever again, making the ultimate sacrifice, a moment of heroism, which is very different from what happens next when Nick arrives. Amber, tell us about Nick.
Sorry if I can hear the train, but okay, great, because it's kind of loud to me. Nick shows up and he has this almost moment where you think he can kind of sense June before he gets on the plane. And like, if this was like a YA novel, he would definitely be able to like sense it. But she's watching him, she can see him, and so she's kind of conflicted about like, hey, should I warn him or whatever? But I think she's just like, no, he made his decision. If he gets on that plane with the other extremist captains that we need to kill, that's his decision. That's his decision. And he finally made that choice. And Lawrence was surprised to see him get on the plane. And their conversation on the plane, oh my gosh, I'm so like, Lawrence is just being, my favorite of all time and just coming out with them banger lines. I love him so much. And it was a good episode. Yeah, but
so
you can say about that conversation between Nick and Lawrence.
So Nick, unlike Lawrence, I think Nick only joined out of cowardice, right? Lawrence was out of heroism, right? He's going to make the ultimate sacrifice. Nick was kind of like, well, I'm without a woman. The other one that I have is pregnant. She's telling me what I need to do, so I better do it. And when he tells Lawrence on the plane, guess you decided to join the winners. Lawrence replies, you know how it is. You do what you need to survive. And while everyone's like settling in, it's almost like Lawrence is, although nervous, he's making peace with his decision. Nick leans in and asks if she's all right, referring to June. So even after all this, Nick still cares and loves June, even though it's not explicitly clear. But then, like, who is she that you refer to, right? It could be your wife. You just saw her. He probably doesn't care about Serena like that. Certainly not Naomi. But Lawrence says, can't keep a good woman down. And then Nick finally reveals that June told him many times to give up his life in Gilead, to give up his life as a high commander, or not a high commander, but a commander. But because Lawrence knows what's about to happen, he kind of smiles, like a half smile, and says, you should have listened to her. Oh,
Yep.
oh. So
Nick's line though, really quick. Nick's line though about like to Lawrence, I guess you finally decided to join the winners. It made me kind of want to smack him because I'm just like, oh, look at you actually acting like the Nazi that you are now. I mean, dude, like, ugh. And I feel like they did need to have that kind of line because they want you to feel that kind of way about Nick at this point. Because,
Yeah.
they've been building up to it. And I feel like without that line, the Nick girlies were not gonna, they're still gonna be really, really, really upset. And granted, they are upset. But
Yeah.
I feel like that was the closest to closure we could get with him,
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, and even June was like heartbroken when she sees Nick at the top of the stairs about to go into the plane. Like, she like cries, like she's breaking down. Like, she still obviously loves him. She has a child with him despite his betrayal, but it hurt her watching, I won't say necessarily the love of her life, but perhaps the love of her life going to die. And so with that, the plane is going to take off, and we're focusing on June. Once again, this is an episode directed by Elisabeth Moss, and she's walking towards the end of the hangar. That's what it's called, the hangar. And she's watching the plane lift off the runway, and you see it, break into the sky, and she's just watching this whole thing. And I did actually like this shot of the camera focused on her, and then you just see the illumination of light, the glow, and the explosion has happened. It's in the distance, of course, and you see like the clouds kind of have like this very soft orange glow, and then it's raining flaming debris, and it's crazy. It's like, for me, I'm like, oh my God, this actually happened. Like, I mean, Mayday's plan actually worked, but we lost Lawrence, and June lost the father of her youngest daughter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, holy shit, what an episode. What a penultimate episode. And at the time, I'm like, well, hell, if this is the penultimate, the finale is going to be fire.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And it wasn't.
And it wasn't.
And it wasn't. Let's just jump right into it, Amber. Let's talk about the final episode of the whole series, which is entitled The Handmaid's Tale. Okay, sure. Why not?
I didn't mind it but I thought it was too heavy-handed
Yes.
about her writing the book.
Yes.
We know that. We've been known. Like, we knew this. We were aware. But it kind of like, I felt, because I mean, Luke says you should write a book. Or no, her mom says you should write a book, and then Luke even says like,
it.
"Oh my God, you should write a book." Everyone, Tuello saying it. Honestly, I'm surprised not even every single person in Mayday like, you should write a book. It was just,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
I get it, but like, it was too heavy-handed. Too
Mhm.
heavy-handed. But
I couldn't agree more. This was actually a real bummer for me in terms of finales. And I don't know why, like, these shows that we've been watching for so long, as of late, do not have strong, either they don't have strong season finales, or in this case, series finale. Like, this was a major letdown for me personally. And apparently the people on IMDb agree as well, because while episode 9 ranked like 9 point something out of 10, this episode ranks at 5.8 out of 10.
I'm not surprised.
Yo, that is a huge drop, like in just like from one episode to another. It's crazy. But this episode opens with the narrations of June. Naturally, she talks about how Boston is free, the occupation is over, it took like 19 days. Then she goes on to talking about Mayday's plan on moving west, basically. That, eventually they'll move to Colorado, which is at where Hannah with Mackenzie's is located. There's like bonfires going on with Gilead propaganda being, put to blaze, and we're seeing like these flashbacks too with Hannah, which I didn't fully understand why they were placed in that moment, because the scene that we saw, Amber, was when Hannah was little, okay, pre-Gilead. They're at the carousels, they're talking. June steps away to go get a ticket. She doesn't hold her child's hand to come with her, say, baby girl, let's, come with me. She leaves Hannah where she was, and June's buying the ticket, then turns around, Hannah's gone. And I'm like, why are you showing that you were not being an attentive mother at that moment? Like, what did you make of that flashback scene?
I think what they were trying to do, they didn't execute it well. So what they were trying to do for me was, I think they were attempting to make it seem that for that last sentence when she does find Hannah, she hugs her and says, "Mama's always come back, mommy's always come back," and stuff like that. Like, I think
Okay.
that that's kind of what they were supposed to say, that I think that's what the goal was, but it
Mm-hmm.
was so excessively unnecessary. That entire
Incredibly.
scene, that entire flashback could have been done for something else. Because yeah, we know that you wanna get Hannah back, we understand that, but genuinely, I kinda forgot Hannah was even in Colorado, so I was like, "Why does that matter?" Like, I
This isn't the only
you're
thing that the showrunners forgot about, by the way. I've got
no,
notes.
I
I've
know
got
you
notes.
do, and I was gonna give you space for that, but it just seems so out of place and so weird. That's what I kind of, I had mentioned to you off camera that the pacing felt so off. And I mentioned at the beginning of this pod too that it felt so jumbled together and haphazard that even aside from this memory, we have multiple other flashbacks of Hannah. And I'm sorry, but like, I know that it is symbolic, but seeing June slowly approach a pyre and put her handmaid's outfit in there, I understand the importance of this, but scenes like that and the flashbacks could have been utilized in ways to actually give us closure, like a series finale is supposed to. And they didn't, because we got
Yes.
like a very scrambled together resolution to Janine's storyline, but and we got a couple other people like Emily and everything like that, but there's so many other things that I'm sure you want to talk more about, which I'm going to let you, that didn't get resolved.
Yes,
And
indeed.
ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not like the Hannah flashbacks. I was
No.
10,000 times over it, especially since it's the same flashbacks that we've seen so many times throughout the whole entire rest of the show. Utilize your time better.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way I felt is that the writers were like, okay, we're like at the finish line. Let's just be done with it, Let's just be done with it.
It's just
Um,
they're bringing back a bunch of nostalgia for for the attention, which
yeah.
that's the exact same thing why there's so many live action remakes of things right now. They're just trying to
Oh my
get
god.
profit off
Yeah.
of the nostalgia, and
Yeah.
that's what they were trying to do. Had so many callbacks to the first season and the first episodes
Mhm.
just to kind of be like, "Here you go, we're giving you what you guys want," but it's not what we want. What we want is answers.
Mhm. Yeah. We're seeing lots of flashbacks in this particular episode, and I get it. It's the final in the whole series. We're kind of like, wrapping up are trying to wrap up some things, because even June walks by a group of imprisoned guardians, and she's flashbacking to like happier moments with Nick, and that kind of thing, which I can understand. You kind of have to reflect on a loss like that, and it's very brief, but it's kind of like that in memoriam, sort of montagey type thing. She does make her way to Luke, who apparently is on drugs or something, because he is just like all go go go, like all gas no brakes, and he's, I guess, in his mind has found his purpose, because he has been struggling throughout his whole time with Mayday, like to have a sense of purpose and a place and what have you, and he's talking about he wants to go to other places to take down Gilead, of course.
Liberate.
But first he's first going to restore the city's electricity and help like get Holly, who is June's mother, and baby Nicole to come down from Alaska. He's also going to try to liberate like New York. But for June, it's like, well, what about Hannah, kind of thing. And it's this constant, obviously, yes, I get it. That's their daughter. They need to get their daughter back. I don't sense the vibe between Luke and June. It's very annoying. I just want them to be done. I want them to be over with. And it's like, just go your separate ways, because we're all tired of it, frankly. Like, just saying, speaking on behalf of everybody, we're tired of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think they kind of finally did that. Like, they kind of were like, yeah, we're still parents, but we are husband and wife, because I'm going to do my thing and you're going to do yours, which it's very much just like it is that separation. I think it's the closest to a breakup of them that we're going to see, because they are still going to have like he's doing everything he can, because he felt helpless and unhelpful until Mayday, and now he finally has his meaning of life, I guess, his purpose. And if good can come out of it, then good for him. So I'm actually pretty proud of him. Good for him. But I did think that I think they made it very clear that, like, hey, we're still her parents and we'll be here for her. And our goal is to get to her.
Yeah.
But we are different people now.
Yeah, for sure.
And we want different things.
For sure. But June will get better news from Tuello, who, ironically, is a commander in the U.S. Army now, or in the U.S. military. And he tells her that because of the fact that so many commanders have been killed, that Mackenzies are now in D.C. So that means Hannah is a lot closer to get to and hopefully liberate and what have you. So that's like a small little victory in it of itself. But he also will tell June that, Janine is still trapped. We get a little bit of a backstory about who Mark's family were, that he has a son with his ex-wife who lives in Hawaii. He's got demons of his own, really, and that he prefers to keep fighting for his son. That way he doesn't have to fight for a Gilead-free future, which I thought was really, really sweet.
Yeah, and really quick though, before you like change from this topic, I don't know if I was one of the few people who understood it, but who heard this when he said that he was a commander, but I know other people in comments of videos I saw on TikTok, I thought he meant commander in chief. I thought he was saying he was the president.
Oh no, he just said commander.
Yeah, but I mean, it is commander in chief. He could be commander in chief. He just didn't specify, and but he also never wanted to go by the word commander, because he wanted to go for her
that's a very specific title though, and like you can't really just like, if you're still an American, like you can't self-proclaim that you're a commander in chief, because that means you're president. But he did say flatly,
he's president. That's all I say.
He did say he is a commander. So I mean, deadpan, we get the joke, or the irony behind it all. But yeah,
I thought it was more him just being also off of the president thing, but I thought it was more him being just conscientious of her trauma with the word commander. Like, he just never wanted to say his title because of how commanders are in Gilead.
That's
He just
probably
didn't want to
that's
associate with that.
that tracks. I think that would track. But he
Yeah.
is commander.
But
But
overall,
yeah.
Tulio for president.
Twello for president.
I'm
Yeah, we
joking.
love it.
I'm
You call him Tulio. He said
I
Tulio.
did.
That's funny.
I did. That's why I laughed after. But either way, whatever.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We see
let's talk about
Serena picking
Serena.
out, trying to find clothes for Noah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So Serena, Serena is now a woman without a country, a woman, without purpose, a woman all alone with her son. But she does congratulate June on her quote unquote victory. And June's like, hey, if it wasn't for you, like we couldn't have done this. And Serena's like, well, I've overthrown 2 countries, at this point. And it's like, yeah, I don't think I would brag about that. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Maybe not say that in public.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in sharing her condolences about Nick's death, June's like, yeah, well, Nick reaped what he sowed. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a very sweet moment between June and Noah when they're picking out clothes. She's fitting him for a Red Sox onesie, that's found in the donation piles, which I thought was very adorable. And then the Twello with June will escort Serena to the refugee bus where Serena pretty much gives her final like plea for apology and acknowledges her part in everything that has gone on in June's life. And June actually says, I forgive you, Serena. And I mean, I think for Serena, I think it was a very heartfelt apology because you do see the tears and you do see like how it shames her, I guess you could say. And then June will take that moment to tell her, I forgive you. And Serena will say, God bless you, June, and gets on the bus. And I thought it was just a very quick exit for Serena, personally. I'm like, this is it. This is really how it's going to be for her. Like, really? This woman who like had this idea about the country and using women to bring forth children for women who are barren and all this other bullshit. I'm like, really? Bruh. I was so upset.
They wasted so much time on the flashbacks and so much time on things that were unnecessary when they could have been focusing on giving her a better exit. And we do see her for like a clip at the very end. Kind of just see her at one of the camps talking to Noah, but whatever. And they're just like, well, we can't really have babies here, but we're like trying to find things for you and stuff like that. And it kind of calls back to the Red Sox jersey, whatever. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because she was one of the other than June, because people forget there. Yeah, there's not just one main character.
Yeah.
Serena has been in the show just as much as June.
Yep.
And we didn't get nearly as much of an ending with her as we should have.
Did not get closure.
Nope.
God damn it. Not at all. Not at all. But this next part, I was actually, I kind of had an inkling feeling that this was going to happen, but I did like how they executed this whole reunion. And when June is given access to her old neighborhood in Boston, she's, walking the grounds and she stops at a business, looks through the window, and then you hear someone off screen who talks about how this ice cream shop used to have like incredible salted caramel something or other. And then you turn and you see none other than Emily, played by Alexis Bledel, who left after season 4 of The Handmaid's Tale. And she looks at June and says, "Blessed be the fruit." And June's response of, "Oh my fucking God." I died.
It was my too, though. Like, I full on squealed. I scared my friend who was next to me because we were both like, we were just parallel playing, and I just went like, yes. I was freaking out about it. And he full on jumped, like skyrocketed, because I was
Yeah.
just so I liked her a lot. And
Loved.
so I was not expecting her to come back. I
Neither
honestly
was
thought we
I.
were gonna get other people before her.
Yeah.
It
No,
was a huge shock.
I was really happy that we got Alexis to come back and reprise her role as Emily because they were walking partners in season 1. June
Yeah.
always thought that Emily, of course, that wasn't her name in the show at the time. It was of something, can't remember. But anyway, she always thought her being a pious little bitch, basically. And so when they hug each other, that's what June says to her in her ear. You pious bitch or something like that, which I thought was great. But we learned that Emily, I mean, she left Canada, she left her wife and their child to come back to Gilead to continue fighting in the rebellion. She's been in Bridgeport. It's a hot rebellion spot. She became a Martha, befriended a commander, but she has been in contact with her family, which I liked how they actually gave a story to explain the gap that
Yeah.
was that's been missing, obviously. And so they go and walk past the wall, if you will, where Gilead would hang their uh, apostates and people who
The
did
sinners.
the sinners. Yeah, thank you. And they're reflecting on just their time and how things have changed and um also sharing like the hope of finding Hannah and what have you.
Mhm.
This was another, I won't say it's a flashback per se, but it was like the scene where June's like, oh, I'm dreaming of Boston, but I'm dreaming of Boston, from like another time where all these women who have been handmaids or Marthas or somehow in Gilead, we're getting reunions once again with the actors who played like Alma and oh God, I can't think of all their names. But anyway, these are handmaids that have died in previous seasons. And it's like they're just out girls' night, karaoke, drinking, having a good time and just enjoying each other's company. And
Mhm.
it's all to the song Landslide from Fleetwood Mac, which I thought was a good choice. But again, this was also something I didn't necessarily feel needed to be included.
I agree. I also didn't feel like I understand that wanting to honor the ones who had died. I get that, but it could have been shorter. It could have just been like a little bit of a memory thing, or like
Yeah,
something that even her and Emily, when reuniting, they could have discussed that. Like they could have talked about everyone. Like they could have had, instead of that over narration of like I keep thinking about what Boston could have looked like or whatever. And it's like instead of
right.
having that, you could have just had you and Emily talking about like because Emily doesn't know what happened to those women. So it could
Yeah,
have been while they were talking and discussing and recapping, she could have told her and then instead of her just narrating to herself, it could have just been her telling Emily and us about this is what I would have wanted if they had
yeah,
lived. I feel like
yeah.
that would have been better than
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
For
But I
sure.
didn't feel like it was
Because
necessary. But that's only if they wanted to really keep that scene in. They should have done it
mhm.
that way instead of but I didn't think it was necessary at all.
No, and I would have rather they use that time for this dream sequence to explain this next scene because then June is taken to the Massachusetts Rhode Island state line, which now Gilead has kind of like reclaimed, I guess you could say. It's the new border. And we see Janine being escorted by guardians to that border and following her are Naomi and Aunt Lydia. So Naomi obviously took Angela with her for safekeeping prior. Lydia was taken away as a prisoner, who I guess is not a prisoner at this point of Gilead. And Angela or Naomi is making her goodbyes with Angela. And she is now going to be reunited with her biological mother. That is Janine. Okay, let's also remember that her name is Charlotte, according to Janine. And I'm like, wait. First of all, why are they being released? how easy is it to be released? Is it because of the fact that they don't have commanders to like make these calls or do these things anymore? And then also Naomi, like, why would she agree to give up her child, air quotes? I mean, and this is where I asked previously about redeeming arc. Did she reach a redeeming arc at this point by giving back the child that she took?
I don't think it's the end of her arc, but I do think it is an arc. Yes. I think, like I
Okay.
said, I think seeing how Lawrence wanted what was best for her, for Angela,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of Gilead, I think that's how Naomi interpreted it. Like, oh, he's allowing her and me to read because he wants what's best. Also, for the story of the little princess too is just kind of a good young lady empowerment kind of thing. So I think it was
Okay.
very
Yeah.
much she finally kind of realized, oh, he wants what's best for Angela,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of Gilead.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to take a look at what I want for my daughter, quotes,
Right.
and what's best for her.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Okay.
so I think that's kind of, but I do think it is kind of sucky that we have to infer all of that. We don't
Yeah.
get shown any of that. And also,
No,
they didn't lead Janine out. They kind of just chucked her out there. They're like,
they did.
here you go.
Yeah.
And also, again, we don't know for sure because my thought maybe is that how this happened and why it was, like you said, so easy for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is how they're setting up for the testaments because Lydia maybe convinced somebody else, whoever is in power now that the commanders are gone. The
Mm.
makeshift commanders, we don't really know.
Yeah.
What maybe she kind of convinced them, like, no, that was a misunderstanding. I'm fine. I'm here. Whatever. I'm your
Uh-huh.
servant. Whatever. And then but secretly in the shadows, she's like, nope, I'm gonna help out. And if
Yeah.
Naomi, my question is like, would Naomi have gone to Lydia and said, hey, I want to do this? That doesn't seem like her.
That's what I'm saying. Like
But then
there's
also, it kind of
no
seems
good.
we have to guess. And so
Yeah.
this is my guess. The only way I can make it make sense in my brain so I can sleep at night is is that so Lydia is working behind the scenes, still with Gilead, but not really
Yeah.
true to Gilead, but pretending. And she makes a plan to get Lydia out, and she wants to. And I have to assume that if she wants to get Janine out, then she probably I would expect her to go to Naomi more than Naomi to go to her about Charlotte/Angela.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was another thing because like, that could have they could have broached the conversation, like Lydia said, "Hey, I don't know." Again, this is all, like, this is fan fiction at this point. Her Lydia is just saying, "Hey, I am trying to get Janine out. What we do to these women is not fair. I am trying to fix that and correct these things. You have her daughter, blah, blah, blah." And maybe Naomi and her had this kind of therapy-esque conversation, and she agreed to it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Well, we will never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think this needed a lot more attention than it was given.
Yeah.
And instead, we got a montage of karaoke.
I did like what June said to Lydia before they parted ways. And she said, "Blessed is the woman who does not walk in stride with the wicked." And Lydia nods and says, "Under his eye, dear." And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn it. Anyway, back in Boston, Holly and Nicole are reunited with Luke and uh, June. Sorry, I almost forgot her name. Um, but June is gonna, bounce again and be like, "You know what, Mom, I need you to watch my child for a little bit longer." and 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 Holly's all like, "Well, how much longer is longer?" And basically, it's this: "Hey, I gotta get Hannah. I gotta do what I have to do in order to to fix things and get my child back. And Holly is the one who kind of talks also about, oh, you should write a book. You're chronicle your fight. You're a warrior, and you're going to inspire other generations, and do this for your children so that they know who their mother is. And I'm like, this sounds like she's going to die, like
Yeah,
the way that Holly phrased it was as if, oh, when you die, at least there will be a book, that way your daughters will know who you are.
that's totally how it came out. But even though, like, she probably meant it more like, "Oh, if you're not gonna be here for your daughter, then write a book so I have a bedtime story to tell your daughter." But it's
Yeah,
like,
basically.
because at this point, June hasn't told, Nick or Holly everything.
Hmm.
So, I think this is kind of her way of being like, "Yeah, give me all the details so I can pass it on,
Yeah.
since you're not gonna be here to do it."
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
Well,
I got that vibe too. It's like, is
yeah,
she dying?
I know. And knowing what I know in the testaments, I was just like, okay. But we've already talked about how Luke and June are kind of like they're together. They're not really together, right? But they have their separate plans. June's gonna go after Hannah. Luke is gonna go onward with the rebellion, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, there will be an after to our relationship, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Go away. More flashbacky scenes to the aquarium with Hannah. So we're gonna see Serena, surprisingly, for one last time. I was like, okay, certainly her send off was not going to be the last of it, but we see her alone and abandoned in a refugee camp where she's already being like told, hey, we don't usually allow children here. You're probably gonna have to like leave and figure it out, kind of situation. But Serena will tell her son that he's all she's ever wanted, and he is all that she'll ever need. Her future obviously is uncertain. Um, but then when she pulls out the Red Sox onesie that June had selected, I think in a way it's kind of like Serena being reminded that she actually is not alone in the world. Like there is someone there in a way for her to a degree, and that is that of
Yeah.
June. Um, but when you watch that scene and then pivot to that of June's final scene in this show with the bed, the lamp, or the table and the chair, that's all that belongs, quote unquote, to Serena in that little taped out rectangular section of the refugee camp, because enter all these other people. It's very similar to what June experienced when she was a handmaid in the Waterfords, right? All
Mhm.
she had was, a lamp, a table, yes, had a bed, but that was it. That's all that like was hers to a degree. And how you see how Serena, who once had it all, has absolutely nothing. She has her child, yes, great, but like, how are you going to care for that child? Like, she went from someone who was on top to someone who doesn't even matter at this point. What are your thoughts and feelings on this conclusion of Serena?
Um, it was just meh. I felt like it was a little bit of a letdown again because she is another main character, and yeah, we
Yeah.
did get another a final scene with her before the final scene with June. Cool, but it really felt lackluster, and I feel like she deserved a little bit more.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that she should just like, I do think that she has to go through some struggle. So yes, it is like her and Noah not having a for certain place and showing that she is seemingly physically at least alone and having to kind of go off on her own. This is like the beginning of her having to struggle. This is her rock bottom, which we have seen so many times with so many other characters. This is her starting anew and trying to change from that, because so I think it's like kind of what that I think that's what they were trying to do, is try and make it seem like, yeah, this is where it's Like, you guys all wanted Serena to suffer, but you didn't want her to die, so now she's alone. That's the closest to suffering she's gonna get. And it's just, I think it was their way of getting the people who like Serena to shut up and the people who don't like Serena to be okay with her ending. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like too gentle of a sentence, I guess.
I was not okay with any of it. As much as I don't want to see any harm or ill will come to the child, because the child is innocent in this case, just like I didn't want to see Serena being bullied on that train to Alaska, by the women who realized who Serena Waterford actually was. I still wasn't quite satisfied with her ending because, like, she's without a country, she's without a home, she's without any real sense of security in her future. But it's like, but she has her child. She gets to keep her child.
Yep.
Because of her choices and how she influenced men to overthrow the United States of America. Other women had their children stolen and would continuously have their children stolen after the birth, right? But she gets to keep her child. But June and company have to go fight to get their children back. And I'm just like, this isn't fucking right. I mean, I don't think I have a perfect ending for Serena either, because I think I kind of maybe half expected that she and Tuello would kind of like end up being a thing, because there were so many hints that alluded to maybe there was some sort of affection towards one another, right? Especially when he came with her to Gilead for Fred's funeral and all this other stuff. Like, I thought that would have sparked some sort of affair, I guess you could say, but it didn't. It didn't.
There's
Not saying,
definitely, you're not alone. There's definitely a lot of people on TikTok and other
yeah,
Reddit posts who are definitely joking about it.
yeah,
So, but
yeah,
or because he does say before sending her off, he's just like, "I'll find you. Like, don't
yes,
worry. Like, yeah, you're
yes.
gonna struggle for a bit, but I got
I
you."
got you, boo.
And I think that's the closest that we're gonna get to confirmation about that, but that's the vibe I got from it.
Yeah. Well, and what will become the final scene for this series, June is going to face her true nightmares and go back to the place where it all started, and that is the Waterford's now burnt and destroyed home. She enters the property, of course, now as a free woman, and is kind of going through reminiscing the horrors of her past, if you will. Goes up to her old bedroom, and we see the complete destruction of the bedroom, which I actually thought, and I'd had to go back, but I actually thought that the whole house had actually just burnt down in its entirety. I didn't think that the structure was still intact, but what do I remember? But
They could have
I'm
reconned it.
all
Who knows?
I most likely, but y'all know I hate that about continuity. Like, if you're not going to keep it to make it make sense, then like why do it at all? But fine. Here, upon reflecting uh, on the events of her life, June actually will begin telling her story. She busts out with a recorder and begins speaking into it with this a chair, a table, a lamp. But before I actually get too far ahead of myself, she sits in the windowsill and imagines Hannah in front of her, and she reaches out to hold her daughter's hand. So it's kind of like symbolic of saying, okay, I'm going to tell my story, but I'm going to tell it to you, Hannah, directly, right? She does know that Hannah is 2,000 miles away in DC at this point. So when June begins the recording of a chair, a table, a lamp, and she begins describing, the elements in the room, talking in first person. And for all you OGs out there, this is actually the first narration we hear from June, aka Offred, in the red dress, sitting at the same windowsill. And I think that was actually really well done, to come
Mhm.
complete full circle from not the first time we met June, because the first time we met June, she was running away with her child and husband. But she raises her head, and that same damn stare that I cannot stand in these self-directed episodes, she flashes a smile and says, "My name is Alfred." And then you actually get the title card at the end of this episode, which usually we see in the beginning of every episode. So this episode, once again, was entitled The Handmaid's Tale. So whoop-de-doo.
And I kind of liked it because like how did her doing the narration there because again, yes, it does story-wise make it full circle, but it also kind of as an audience makes it be like, oh, this entire time she's literally just remembering it up to this point. So this
Yeah.
entire time, that's at least how I took it was that this entire time that is them showing that this entire time we've been hearing it from her point of view in her
Yeah.
story and everything like that. And
Yeah.
that's yeah. And also some people were not really happy the fact that she appeared to wear wife green, but when she went there because it kind of seemed a little counterproductive. But I took it as that was just because that's what the cover of Testaments looks like.
Yeah.
It's green.
It's
So
green.
my
And I
brain
think
just yeah,
the wife green is actually more like blue
blue.
green. It's not
It's
it's not
supposed to
like
be more blue
true
green, but
green.
they
Yeah.
yeah. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be more blue green because the commanders wear blue too, like a dark blue
Exactly.
black. And
Exactly.
it's supposed to be more blue, but they made it green for the show.
Yeah. Now I think people are reading way too much into it. I mean, talk about a power move too,
Oh
if
yeah.
she decided to do that. Coming
Yeah.
back as a
But
free
entirely is
woman.
because of Testaments.
Yeah, I know. 100%. 100%. So I did want to go back to see if perhaps the beginning narration was also that of the book, and I didn't get a chance to do that, but I'm sure it is. Amber, before we wrap, this has been a long pod. Thank y'all so much for hanging in there with us as we went through some technical difficulties. Y'all are the MVPs. Praise be. But Amber, just a couple of bones I got to pick. Quickly talk about. I have issues. What the hell happened to Rose?
Esther shaped issues?
No, no.
Oh, I thought it was
What
gonna be
happened to
Esther shaped
Rose?
issues, but okay.
No, what happened to Rose?
Oh yeah,
What
I mean I
happened
want to know
to
too.
Nick's pregnant wife? What happened to her? No one
I don't
knows.
know. I guarantee you people are writing fan fiction as we speak.
I mean, Nick's gone. Okay. Her father is gone. Did the hospital get bombed? Because also, yes, to your point, Esther was never addressed in this season. She was left pregnant, having been
Nope.
raped by the former Commander Putnam. Like, why? Why bring those storylines into the mix if we're not going to conclude them? I don't understand. I don't understand.
No. Again, it felt too rushed. Too rushed,
Quick
too haphazard. They were
flashbacks.
focusing on the wrong things.
I
And
couldn't agree more.
if you can't get the act like maybe they couldn't get the actress who played Esther back. Maybe they couldn't get her
Mm,
back, or maybe she had other scheduling conflicts. Okay,
yeah.
whatever. I'm making excuses here. But if that happens, then have us verbally find out what happened.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. Just like we got
like
verbal confirmation about what happened to Emily. Sorry.
yeah, like you and same thing with everybody, like but them confirming about what with Lydia and Janine before we actually saw them, and then saying that Hannah was moving to DC, from Colorado. Like those are things that are all verbal. You could have done the
Yeah.
same thing with Esther.
Yep.
Everyone just forgot about Esther,
And Rose.
and
And
maybe
Rose.
I guess and Rose. Yeah, I know, but also I don't really have as much sympathy for Rose, but she is still a woman, I get it, but
Yeah. Pregnant.
I I wanna know what happens, but I wanna know what happens with Esther, and also, maybe, again, I'm gonna make excuses, but maybe in Testaments, that'll be, like, something that they cover, like, Lydia tries to get Esther out. like early on, because
Hmm.
we know that obviously the show The Handmaid's Tale doesn't follow the book as accurately after season 1.
Correct.
So I'm expecting that Testaments is gonna be similar. Yeah, they're gonna have the bare bones of that in there, but they are gonna
Yeah.
have some leeway, so maybe that's I feel like that, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I feel like that is what made this episode tank so hard. They
Yeah.
were leaning and relying on the fact that, "Oh, I don't have to do as much and I can waste all of our time on flashbacks and things because don't worry,
Mhm.
guys, we have a sequel series." And no, that's not what you're supposed to do.
I feel if the series had ended with the penultimate, right? Serena having a redemption moment, giving up the location of the husband, Lawrence the self-sacrifice, all the other commanders dying, Boston being liberated by the Americans.
Mhm.
June obviously is not done because she is wanting to get to Hannah. I feel like we could have done without this episode in particular. This is one of the very few times that I feel like we could have
Yeah.
done more with just 9 episodes than having 10. And it was a letdown. It ultimately was a letdown for me, but in ways I think for Lydia to also have sort of a redemption arc, because that will feed into the Testaments itself. I won't reveal anything about the Testaments in general, but I for one will be watching the show whenever it does come out. Read the book, love the book. Um, I know a lot of
Same.
people are falling off the bandwagon that is The Handmaid's Tale because they were so displeased with the finale episode. But hey, to each their own. Under his eye. But yeah, I'm glad we finally got a chance to wrap up this whole entire series. I'm so glad, Amber, that you have watched this episode, watched these seasons as well, because before I was just a talking head and giving my thoughts. So it's been great
Yeah.
to share this series with you. Thank you so much for being here, despite all the Gilead tampering with our technology and trying to prevent you from sharing your thoughts and think and reading and whatnot.
Thank you. Really. I mean, and for those of you who see our other episodes on this pod, or at least the ones that I'm in, Handmaid's Tale was the first podcast for Watchers that I ever did. And it's actually how
Yes.
I started joining and doing podcasts with the Watchers. And
Yay.
I, before making friends with Brittany, I actually didn't have a single other person to talk about Handmaid's Tale with because I had people who watched the first season or a couple of episodes and then they just couldn't continue. And I understand it is a rough show to start and to
Rough show.
watch. And so I completely and I'm never gonna push it if somebody doesn't feel comfortable watching it. But I had nobody to talk to. And as Brittany can attest, and as I'm sure viewers who have seen me frequently know, when I like something, I love something, and I have to talk about it or I will erupt. And I will go on hour-long tangents about things, and I have a violent need to discuss things. I'm a very passionate being, and I cannot have that be stifled.
Yeah.
So, having a gateway to do that has been amazing, and,
Yay.
Handmaid's Tale is going to be near and dear to my heart because that was my introductory to the Watchers, and
Aw.
I am very thankful for it. But, as much as, like, the finale did let me down, I will be back for the Testaments. So
Yay.
yeah, but, thank you for having me on here. It was our first time ever podcasting together, and I
Yay.
really, really enjoy it.
Me too. No one more excited than myself at the time, because I was like, I need to talk about the show. Like, need to talk about the show. Glad you were here. And yeah, we'll definitely be back for more of the Handmaid's Tale universe. Hopefully we won't actually ever live in real life Gilead. But Amber, transitioning out from Gilead and transitioning into the magical world, you have a wonderful YouTube channel. Please tell us more about it.
Fun intended. So I have a YouTube channel called All of Amber's Wands. It's a study of wands and wand lore in the wizarding world. I go into the cultural, symbolic, and historical meaning of the wands, the woods that the cores come from, and the magical beasts, all of that, and I compare that to the personality of the character. And I also give wand update news because the parks and such are coming out with individual wands that are not tied to a character. And I give you all the info about it. And if you like Harry Potter, or even if you just like wands and magic in general, check out my channel because I just spend a couple minutes every, and I try to do like 8 to 10 minute long videos, info dumping about wands. So check that out if you want to. But I also have an Instagram and a TikTok under the same name, at All of Amber's Wands, so that you can check out and talk with me there. My videos are also there as well. But I also like a whole bunch of other things too. So definitely, even though my channel is primarily wands, I do have a enjoyment for many, many, many things, as Brittany can attest. So
This is true.
definitely join me there. I actually have 341 subscribers as of today, and
Woo!
I am hoping to reach 400 by the end of the year, maybe.
Yay! So help make that happen. Go show some love to Amber over on her Instagram. Her Instagram handle is here on the banner of this pod, as well as in the description box down below. And also go show her some love over on her YouTube channel. Go give her a follow, give her a like, turn on your notification bells. And while you're doing that, we're about to head out of here, y'all. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, hit the notification bells that way you know that the next time we go live. We will be back, Amber and I, along with Justin, to talk about Amber's other love, Doctor Who. We will be discussing the latest season that has completely dropped on Disney Plus. So we will be back to talk about the first 4 episodes of Doctor Who, and we'll come back later to talk about part 2.
The first the season actually just ended today. Today is the release of the finale of season 2, which I have so many thoughts about, but I will have to keep them hidden because we're only talking about the first 4, like you mentioned. But I'm very excited. So any other timey-wimey Whovians out there, join us on Monday for that.
Please do so. So once again, subscribe, hit the like button, hit that notification bell. Follow all of our social media links. You can find those in the description box down below. And lastly, we have audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a follow. Give us a 5-star rating. We would truly appreciate it. Amber, once again, thank you so much for being here, talking about this difficult subject that is Gilead, of course. Thank you. Much love to you. And as always, Amber, under his fucking eye.
Under his fucking eye.